Ha! I'm Casey Ferris. I make videos on DaVinci Resolve here on YouTube. Today we're talking about color correction. Wait a minute. You haven't subscribed? What are you Come on, man. Hit that sub. I'd like to hang out again. And if you think I'm begging for subs, well, you're right. Today we're talking about day to night conversions, basically shooting something in the day and then doing color magic, whittle-boo, 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 and it turns to nighttime. Hey, baby. I knew we could do it. Let's go. So here's a look at what we're going to be making. It's this little nighttime shot with the lit up window in the middle. That's pretty nice. But let's take a look at this before. This is without any of our work. This is how the shot came in. So how do we go from this to this? Well, I'll show you. I'll just go ahead and duplicate our shot and reset everything. So now we have the shot as it came in. I'll switch over to color. And here we are in the Resolve 17 color page. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of our timeline and our clips and our gallery, just because we don't need all that stuff right now. This will be a little easier to see what the heck is going on. The very first thing about a day to night conversion is you want to probably shoot this not in direct sunlight. You don't want things to be super bright. You could make that into moonlight. I've seen people do that. I feel like things look a little better if it's kind of an overcast day, which luckily in Oregon, we have a lot of those. So pretty easy to get. So it's easier if you shoot with this kind of thing in mind. If you'd like some practice and you want to follow along on this exact shot, well, boy, howdy. Ground control.film is where you want to be. Here towards the top under assets, click on free assets and scrunch on down to the bottom. And look at this, free day for night practice assets. Download it and practice and follow along. What the heck is that's amazing. Unzip it, throw it in a timeline, open up the color page, and you're with me. If you want, I'll wait if you want to do that. I'm not going to wait that long. You should have paused the video. Okay, moving on. So we have a couple of jobs here. The first one is to make everything basically darker and look like it's nighttime. And then we also want to brighten up whatever window we want to be bright. So the first thing is making everything look like it's nighttime. A great tool for this is the custom curves, because you have a lot of control over what is bright and what is not. And so we're going to try and get like 80% there with this one node, just with the curve. I'll take this and I'm just going to push this down. I'll bring up our scopes, and I'm going to bring this down like halfway and then push the middle down a lot too. And the shadows, push them down a lot. Basically, we're just making everything really, really dark because, guess what? At nighttime, things are pretty dark. Something like that. Okay. That's probably a good starting point. We're also going to want to make things a little bit blue because we always think of nighttime as kind of this blue color. So I'll grab my gain wheel and just pull that a little bit towards blue, just a little. And the gamma wheel, pull that just a little bit towards blue, somewhere in there. And then it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what looks good, messing with the curve a little bit, pushing stuff down, maybe desaturating it just a little bit until you feel like most of this is pretty dark. Now, one thing is that our sky is pretty bright. So what we can do is color correct our sky to be separate from the other things. So I'm going to do that using a serial node. Here in our nodes, I'll hit Alt-S, and that will add another serial node. And let's label this just to be a good kid, right? We'll call this sky, and we'll call this most other stuff. What we'll do with the sky is just go to our Windows palette right here, and I'll grab the pen, and I'll just draw kind of a rough shape sort of along the roof line here. And just make a shape that's a lot bigger than the top part of our shot. I'm bringing it off of here because we're going to soften this a lot and I don't want the softness to come in on the sides or the upper part. So yeah, something like that. And now if we go to our highlight, we can see it's just selecting inside of that window. So now we can grab the curves for this and bring down the sky to look a lot more nighttime-ish there. Now we're going to have this horrible line, which obviously looks bad, but the idea here is that we'll take our window and under softness, I'm going to push the inside up and the outside up. And we can really soften this out to be a very gradual kind of effect on our whole shot. Now we still might have gone a little bit crazy with our color correction here, so we can kind of adjust this to look at least sort of natural, kind of blend with things a little better, but still do some work on that sky. So something like that maybe. Maybe we'll push a little more blue into the sky. So now here's before and here's after, kind of just doing some darkening on that sky. So this is the point where, if it looks too dark or too light for you, mess with it, but that's the general idea of making this kind of look like night. But what really sells that this is nighttime is to have a little bit of color contrast here, a little bit of some artificial light. And you could do this basically any way you want. What we're going to do today is just lighten up one of these windows. And to do that, we're going to use a very special node that I don't think I've really gone over a whole lot in my videos, but it's called a layer node. So up here in our nodes, I'll hit Alt-L, and that's going to make a layer mixer and a new layer. Whichever node is connected to the bottom input is on top of everything else because they made this wrong on purpose as a joke, I imagine. I don't know. There's probably a reason for that. It's probably really smart, but I don't know what it is. The other thing that'll happen is that this is not really hooked up right. What's happening right now is that we're doing our first correction, and then we're taking this corrected image and piping it into a new layer and then putting it over our sky, which it's effectively just skipping the sky correction. And that's why we have our brighter sky here. So if we go over to our nodes and unhook that and take our input, pipe it into our green input for our node, now we're doing something a little different. We're taking our original footage and putting it over everything we just did, basically making it just look like our original footage. So why are we doing it this way? The reason is we want to use the image before we do any of this color correction, because if we're going to add things that are bright, we might as well just use the bright image, right? Instead of brightening up this dark image that we've already made dark. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. This layer is going to be things that are lit up. We're going to do a window today, but you can honestly really do just about anything. I could grab a circle window like this, and you see it kind of becomes a light, right? So anything here is kind of lit up, and maybe there's a light that kind of comes from off of frame here to kind of light up our truck a little bit. Then we can kind of just push the gain a little bit more towards yellow. And now we have a light kind of coming in this way. Doesn't look super convincing, but you can do stuff like that if you set it up right, if you're careful, you know? But what we're going to do with this node is we're going to select just our window, and then we're going to do some fanciness to it. So with this upper layer node selected, we'll grab our pen, and I'm just going to draw a shape kind of along the white part, the white sill of this window, like that. And what that will do is just composite this original window image over our color corrected stuff here. And so now we have a super strange, bright looking window over everything else. Perfect, we're done, yay. But this is almost the opposite of what we want, right? The outsides are really bright and the insides are really dark. And if this is a window that's lit up in the middle of the night, we're gonna probably have more of a silhouette with these bars and it's gonna be brighter inside. So we could mask out every single little rectangle here and that would take forever and it would be miserable. Or we can do a color trick. Using this color trick, we're going to make the darker parts lighter and the lighter parts darker. And this happens in the curves again. Man, curves is just the friend of day to night conversions. So check this out. This little slider on the curves, I don't know if you've seen this, but when you slide this, it changes the contrast. So if you slide it down a little bit, it'll change the contrast of whatever you're correcting. But if you slide it way down, it'll invert the image. So now we have a bright window with the dark slats. You know what I'm saying? You see where we're getting here? And so now if I just soften my mask here, see it, we're working on a window and this mask is called a window. So we're making a window. If I make the outside softer on our window, we can kind of just adjust this to look nice, right? And if we can get this to look decent like this, we're going to be home free. So now if you had bright heavenly stuff were happening right there, just piping out of this window, and that might be what it looks like. So that's cool. Let's adjust this just a little bit. Let's kind of adjust the levels of the darker parts and the lighter parts, which we would normally do in the gain and lift. And we can still do in the gain and lift, but remember everything here is backwards. And so when I boost up the gain, it actually darkens the darker parts. Crazy. So I'll boost up the gain to just darken the darker parts and take down the lift to brighten the brighter parts. And the gamma still works in between, although when you push it up, it darkens things, and when you push it down, it brightens things. Kind of crazy. So I'm going to push it up a little bit just to get a little bit more detail here in the window and just kind of play around with stuff until it kind of looks like it's a reasonable silhouette of what's happening, right? So I don't know, maybe something like that. And then it's just a matter of playing with our window until it doesn't look weird. I'd say that's looking better. And now let's kind of tint this yellow, which again, it's backwards day, right? So normally we would take our gain and push it towards yellow, but instead we're going to take our lift and push it towards blue, and that's going to do what we want. So we're going to just push that a little bit more yellow, and depending on what you think looks good, you can push it more to saturate it, whatever you want to do. So something like that, maybe we think that looks pretty good. That's overall kind of how it's done. what I like to do, just because this still looks a little bit cheesy, a little bit fake to me. So now I want to just make this look a little bit less smooth so that it can be a little more realistic, because you don't always get this nice even lighting over stuff, right? So let's add some shapes to kind of be curtains and everything. So in this same node, I'm gonna go to the Windows palette, and up here I can add another power curve. So I'll click on that right here. That'll add another pen shape window here. And now I can just draw a shape that, let's say, is gonna be the curtains, something like this. And then down in my windows, I can click on this little button that kind of looks like window shades. Man, this is just so perfect. Look at this. I click on this and it does what we want. It's so good. And if we take this opacity down, we can adjust the transparency of the curtains. Look at that. So maybe we'll just take this and just make it slightly darker, and we'll soften it a little bit, something like that, just to add this little streak here. And now it's already selling it a little more, you know? Maybe we'll even adjust the softness here, bring the opacity up a touch. And now we have this just not looking so uniform. We could probably do the same thing for the other side. Again, I'll just add a power curve and kind of the same thing. Boop, and turn it to window blinds mode. Soften it a touch and turn the opacity down to like 30 maybe. See, that's looking better. So there's our window looking pretty nice. Now let's see if we can blend this in a little better. Cool thing about the layer mixer is we can right click on it and go to Composite Mode, and we have all these different types of transparency modes that we can go through, and we can just mouse over each one and figure out which one looks more realistic. So difference looks pretty good, but it's a little dark maybe. Ooh, look, hard light, that looks kind of cool. You can imagine some of these, even if you just adjust them a little bit, might look pretty nice. Lighten, linear light, see? So linear light looks pretty cool. It looks like it's kind of actually looking through curtains there. So we'll select that, but now this part that's really, really black just looks really bad. So what we can do is take our gain, which remember in opposite land is our shadows, and we can push this down until it kind of starts to blend and make more sense. So, you know, something maybe like that, until it starts to look a little more realistic. Maybe this middle part is too dark. We can add another power curve and just kind of cut that out. Just draw a little shape around that. And again, turn it to window blinds mode. Look at that. No problem. Soften it a touch. And now our window's looking pretty good, I'd say. Looking pretty good. So that's kind of the general idea behind a day for night conversion. It's starting with color correcting most of the shot, and then the sky if you need to, and then putting the original footage over itself, kind of masking and tinting anything that needs to be brighter. And it comes together in a pretty cool little composite that you can do in the color page. Isn't that neat? You could shoot a whole movie like this if you wanted to, you know? That would be plenty of work, but this would definitely get you through if you need a night shot and you just can't get out there, or you don't have big enough lights to kind of bring up this light level. This is a great way to do it. So there you go. Easy as pie. Easy as crumb pie, night pie at night. Easy as pie at night. More color correction tutorials, Resolve 17 tutorials, all of those things. If you want to learn more, that's how you do it. If you don't want to learn more, well, just close the tab right now. When you come back when you're ready to learn, sir, ma'am, you, person.